Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So we're 40 days away from the presidential election between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And this is the battleground map. You've got the big 7 swing states. Whoever gets to 270 electoral votes first wins. And Donald Trump has several paths to 270. Kamala Harris also does as well. But we have new data out of the Sun Belt and new developments out of several Sun Belt states that took place either today or recently that I feel like are important to cover. Because if Donald Trump goes out there and he wins North Carolina, and he wins Georgia, and he wins Arizona, he just needs one Rust Belt state to win. It's possible he gets more than one. You could even make the case he's favored in all of the swing states as things stand today, given past polling misses in presidential years, given just the macro environment as a whole. And when you look at some of the data, even data that usually is not favorable for Republicans, it's looking to be extraordinarily decent for Donald Trump in a lot of places that actually matter. And we're about to find out if Donald Trump is able to win this thing pretty shortly as we get a lot of this early vote data. But so far, all the data we have looks good for Trump. It does not look good for Harris. That doesn't mean that it's over. But he's got, it seems to be, an early lead in the trajectory of the race, given how well he is at closing, given how, a lot of the voters that are voting early are lower propensity voters on the right in a place like Virginia, which could get a lot closer. What does that exactly mean for the rest of the Sun Belt? We're going to talk about all this and more, but really quickly, I have to tell you guys about our merch store, shop.redeaglepolitics.com. We're 40 days out. Why not get some 2024 election merch? We got the Make Cats Safe Again design, the t-shirts, the coffee mugs. These are best sellers. We've got the Trump iconic mug, my favorite mug. You got the Trump bullet design on the front, the inspirational quote on the back, and you can get that with the matching t-shirt. We're doing a special right now, buy one, get one, 20% off all t-shirts, tank tops, and mugs. We're doing free shipping on orders above $50, and everything is made in the USA, 100%. And you guys can check out my merch store at the link in the description and the pinned comment down below. And this is the election map, and we have new polls. Marist is not a pollster that is seen as a Republican-leaning pollster. It's one of the more liberal pollsters in the country. In 2020, their final poll in North Carolina had Joe Biden winning the state by 6. It's a 7.3% miss. A 7.3% miss is malpractice. That's how awful Marist has been at polling a state like North Carolina. But now they're showing a tied race. And we have a lot of other polls that show Donald Trump with a lead in North Carolina. He leads the aggregate. And you see the most recent poll, Victory Insights, Trump by 4. That's exactly what we got when we polled the state of North Carolina about a month ago. Fabrizio Anzalone, they have Donald Trump up 3. American Greatness, TIPP, they have Trump up by 3. So a lot of the polls we're seeing, even the New York Times, which had Trump losing the last poll, Trump is leading this poll. Democrats are very bullish on North Carolina for one reason or another. I do not really understand why. If you look at the 2020 polling in North Carolina, you can see the fact that there was not a single nonpartisan poll after, I believe it was, September, that had Donald Trump leading, but he still won the state. And the supposed, right-wing polls flooding the zone, they call them low quality, the election mafia. Those polls were the accurate ones. They were. Because those polls typically tend to understand that there is that missing Trump voter, that white working class voter. They exist more in places like Wisconsin, but they're a sizable chunk of North Carolina as well. And the polls both times have underestimated Donald Trump in the state of North Carolina. If they underestimate him at all, he's going to win the state as things stand right now. Democrats are completely delusional. They think that because Republicans put up a controversial down ballot candidate that somehow that's going to sink Donald Trump in the state, when in reality, you could talk about down ballot effects past that point, like state House and state Senate races. But in terms of the top of the ticket, the race people are going to vote on, first and foremost, it's the presidential race. Reverse coattails do not exist. It's not like Trump is openly embracing, Robinson. He's openly defending Robinson. He's, kind of just doing his own thing. and he's going to end up winning North Carolina. And I think Robinson's going to at least lose by a lot less than what the polls currently show. In fact, it's funny because he's out polling Dan Forrest at the same point in 2020 as well. And people back then weren't, saying the same thing about, Roy Cooper's going to cause Donald Trump to lose to Biden in North Carolina. They didn't. They clung to the polls, but now they can't do that for some reason. But, reverse coattails, it's a joke. They've never existed. But North Carolina looks good, and it looks even better when you realize two factors. Look at Virginia. Virginia and North Carolina, you don't see them move in opposite directions very often. And when you have, you've seen Virginia move left and North Carolina move right. And that's because of trends. And you're not going to see a lot of trends this cycle, most likely in a place like Virginia or Georgia, just because there has not been as much movement, a lot of interstate migration in this economy. You saw it a lot from 2010 to 2020. After COVID, you haven't seen nearly as much of it. A lot of it is just New Yorkers moving to Florida. And that's pretty much about it. And both states are getting redder for some reason. But you look at the history of this, the states and how they've moved in the past. 2000, 2004, really no movement. 04 to 08, there was a big shift, but they shifted by the identical amount. And then they rebounded a little bit the next time. Now, North Carolina kind of pulled away due to, educational trends going in different directions from 2012 to 2016. And then from 2016 to 2020, just because of the national environment. Yeah, Virginia was to the left of North Carolina by shift by 2.5 points once again. North Carolina trended red. The national environment shifted by 2.5%. North Carolina shifted by around that margin, a little bit less than that actually. But you see the gap of the variance between these two states. It's not big. And if Virginia is really going to be like, D+7, D+6, I don't think you're going to have Donald Trump losing North Carolina, because you could say, well, Virginia's got a competent GOP now. Well, they can play a role, but North Carolina also has a competent GOP. They have a supermajority, and we see other things that they've done recently. And you talk about these voter rolls, a lot of people wanted them cleaned up, and now they're doing it. North Carolina, 750,000 voters from the voter rolls are cleared out. What does that mean? Any risk of any sussy stuff goes way down. And already Trump won North Carolina in 2020 in a macro environment that was not really favorable to him. He still pulled off a victory in the state, and he likely will again, regardless of the Harris campaign's delusion about North Carolina. I'd be very surprised. A lot would have to go wrong for Donald Trump to lose North Carolina. And in terms of Nevada, they're doing the same thing in Nevada. 100,000 were removed. This was a few weeks ago in Clark County. So already in Clark County, you're seeing them clearing off the voter rolls, which is absolutely huge. Less of this universal VBM system. You're going to be sending potential ballots to voters who could be inactive. You're not going to be doing that this cycle, which is good overall as it stands today. And Donald Trump is going to stand to benefit again in Nevada, which already is trending to the red and already is a state that, despite some of the recent polling moving a little bit to the left, I still think Trump is probably favored in Nevada as things stand today. Obviously, I'll be able to make a better prediction when we start getting some of these, early returns, the early vote data, you name it, out of the state of Nevada. But it's not like that's the only state. You look at Arizona. Maricopa County, Republicans have 160,000 voter advantage over the Democrats. That was not supposed to be the case. You're seeing a massive shift in Arizona on the ground, where Republicans are getting out there, registering voters, amping up the ground game. And this is post the primary. Usually you say, okay, maybe the primary totals are going to be inflated because people are going to cross over. No, you're not seeing them shift back. You're seeing more people after the primary join the GOP, even in a county that has kind of moved a little bit to the left in recent years, like Maricopa County. Donald Trump is in a great position overall, but you see a lot of people, shifting to the Republicans. Arizona was a state the party registration looked like it was going to flip to the Democrats like 4 or 5 years ago, but it's turned a total corner. It went from 130,000 voter registration lead. Now it's like double that and counting for the Republican Party. That's a massive shift. And Donald Trump is in a great position to flip back Arizona. And it seems like a state where the Harris campaign, they're not that bullish. And if Trump actually takes the state, and we could look at the polls, he's up by 1.6 in the state of Arizona. Marist has him up in Arizona as well. They have him up in Georgia. That's huge. If he takes Arizona by, let's say he does win it by like 2 points, a little bit more than that, could he carry Lake? No pun intended. It's possible. He could. It's not, guaranteed, but it's not off the table either. I think there's going to be some crossover voting, but the two are very similar, and you do have this tendency of Republicans to come home late. Will enough of them come home late? That's the real question. But if he's polling at roughly 49% in Arizona, and in a state like Georgia, he's polling roughly at 49%. And the most accurate polls in past cycles like CBS News and even some liberal polls like Marist, no matter what poll it is, he's winning the polls in Georgia. He's led every poll in Georgia, or it's been a tied race going all the way back to, late August, right after the DNC. And even then, Harris could barely muster up any lead at all. And that's when she had a lot of response bias kind of working in her favor back then, more so than she does now. So Georgia, Kamala Harris, they say, oh, well, it's a black woman. You're going to have ridiculously high black turnout. Yeah, I don't think we're really seeing it. We're not seeing it in the raw data, the mail-in request data. In North Carolina, it keeps getting redder and redder. Georgia, the numbers are way down. It's probably going to be redder than it was in 2020 as well. And we also got to get these lower propensity voters out to vote. Those are the people we need to be getting to the polls either early while we can, or we can get them later on. We need to make sure everybody votes. But if you talk about the way things are going in the Sun Belt, if Trump gets North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada, he's at 268. And again, Nebraska is spineless. They could easily make this a Trump win. It'd be a Trump win in the House, almost regardless of what happens in the House races in a realistic way. But you could see him get Wisconsin and win, which I think he's favored in regardless of the polling. We know how Donald Trump is polled in Wisconsin. I'm not even saying the error is going to be 7 points again, but it could be, 2 points. It'd be more than enough. Pennsylvania. Trump could win Pennsylvania. He gets there. Michigan probably is the bluest of the three. I don't think he'd win Michigan and then lose the other two. I think that'd be a pretty rare situation. But given just what's going on right now, Trump is definitely favored in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. I can tell you that much. Michigan, little bit of a different story, but he's shoring up the Sun Belt. And then you look at where his rallies are over the next week: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. He needs to obviously hit both, but he's kind of pulling away. And this is something Mark Halperin said, who accurately predicted the Biden dropout almost verbatim. We scoffed at the idea. It happened. And he said that he does expect Kamala Harris, after the debate, when everything settles down and Donald Trump preys on her weaknesses and she implodes in front of the media, that just like it was with pre-debate Biden, Donald Trump would be leading in the Sun Belt states. He leads in North Carolina, even in a lot of these liberal polls. Same with Georgia and Arizona. Nevada, he doesn't, but we haven't had that many polls, and it's like kind of a tough state to poll anyways for either side. And then he says Michigan and Wisconsin will be a very tight race where Harris might lead in the polls, but we've seen the polling errors in those states, how many cycles in a row. And he's right, and he expects Trump to be leading in Pennsylvania. We kind of see that already. Pennsylvania, a little bit different, but when you have 3 polls that are back-to-back tie, and there were 2 other polls that were released at the same time, not even on RCP, that are like tied, could there be some like poll herding thing going on? There was a rumor Susquehanna was going to drop at Trump +1, and it's possible they weighted it down to a tie because certain pollsters, they don't want to have the blowback of, oh, well, why do you have Trump ahead in Pennsylvania? They're going to get the angry tweets from the election mafia dons. They don't want to do that. They don't want to face them. But either way, a lot of these polls have underestimated Trump in the past. The exception is Susquehanna, but again, they were aligned with insider advantage back then, which has Trump up by 2 in the state. So I think Trump is probably favored in Pennsylvania. We'll see how it shakes out down the stretch. But it is true that Harris is not in a much different predicament than pre-debate Biden at this point. She's stopping the bleeding among the core Democrat base. She's giving them enthusiasm, but still, that enthusiasm is not showing up in the raw data. So it's far from a done deal. We got to close. We got to finish this thing. But still, I'm telling you guys, The Sun Belt's looking pretty good, and the Rust Belt, I think, is soon to follow. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.